Hi and welcome to the newest Alpha Challenge video. In this video I'll be showing a deck list that I ended up getting 6 wins with for the Pre-Release Tavern Brawl. The idea behind the deck is to use your leeches to be able to steal health from your opponent. It's quite a control-y archetype that's very interesting that it's been discovered so early on in the expansion. The idea behind it is you want to be able to tempo early to be able to build a board, and then afterwards you're going to be looking for being able to try and get your leeches out. The leeches are able to steal health from your opponent, which from the lowest health enemy, which can be useful in terms of comboing onto your opponent's minions, or getting through divine shields and things like that. The other thing that's useful about stealing health rather than dealing damage is that it goes through armor. So if your opponent's building up a bunch of armor but they don't have very much health, you can use the leeches and they actually will end up killing the opponent through the armor rather than just through the health that they'd have. So it means that it doesn't matter what their armor is in total for their hero, it will just take them out fully if they end up going down to 0. The cards you want to mulligan for: Mortal Swarm, Infested Breath, Infester, Chillforged Baron, and also sometimes the 2 mana minions, the Hemorrhage and also the Mortician. Ultimately, with the what you'll see in this footage is that I will be using a lot of tempo, and there are quite a few mistakes that I do end up making at the start of these games as well. So something that you will notice is that there are obvious areas that I can improve on as well, like the interactions between the cards. I'm not really very used to Death Knight, so you know, obviously it does show the power behind the deck since I was able to go so well with it. What I just did then was I played down my 4 mana spell, so it allows me to get 2 leeches onto the board, which will then steal the health and go to my hero, but then take it away from the lowest health enemy. And then from that, I can use those leeches to be able to get more health from what my opponent has. I end up drawing into Airlock Breach here, but I do just play down my 6 mana minion. So I play down the minion that gets the extra health. So it ends up making your leeches deal 3 damage each time instead of the 1, which is actually very powerful for your opponent. So it takes a lot of damage away from your opponent. It takes a lot of damage away from your opponent's health as well, if you are able to get them out onto the board very easily. My opponent then just uses their hero power, which doesn't really do too much, because having the wisps on the board, it's not really doing anything. Like, it does mean that I'm not able to get out my my minion's not dealing as much damage as what it would be able to, but ultimately I am dealing quite a lot of damage using the stealing of health, and I'm getting up to quite a large health total. The 3/5 leech, you do want to make sure that you're defending it, because with the extra life steal that you end up getting from the leeches does improve it quite a lot. I do end up playing down the weapon here and swinging into my opponent. It does show that they more than likely will be using a counter spell, and I did test, but all my spells in my hand, like I didn't want to use the Corpse Explosion just in case it wasn't a counter spell. I obviously did test for freeze for the ice barrier, but yeah, it wasn't worthwhile trying to use that, especially if it wasn't going to work out well for me. So I do just play down my Ancient of Yore. So it's quite a strong draw card. So it's a 5 mana 5/5 that goes dormant and then draws 2 extra cards. So one for each turn. Like it gains armor as well, so you get a little bit of health total. I feel like it's stronger in this mini set than what it will be in the future expansion, just because it draws a card and it gains armor for 5 mana, so you're not actually really doing too much. But in a limited card pool like this, it is a bit more powerful than what you'd be seeing and things like that. I do obviously have the 2 Corpse Explosions here. I end up just using them just to get rid of the Divine Shield minion that's there, and then I get 2 extra cards coming from my Ancient of Yours. They do a little bit, but ultimately you will see that they're not dealing that too much in terms of you know, like it's drawing me extra cards and things like that, but it's not really doing too much otherwise. With the Blessing of the Wisp, they are going to get some armor using their hero that's here, and then obviously with the hero power they have, it's getting stronger and stronger as well, so that's something else I do need to consider. I do have the Ysera here, which I can use that to be able to take control of those wisps that are on my opponent's board, but and also if they do end up taking it out, it does mean that I can use my hero, I can get those minions obviously back, like if they use Ceaseless Expanse or something like that, so it is in general going to be quite strong to be able to deal with your opponent. I did draw onto my next Hideous, which I'm going to be making sure that I'm being very careful with, that I'm keeping it safe until I am going to be comboing down my opponent, just because this deck doesn't really have too much burst. Like, you do obviously have your burst that comes from the leeches, but besides from that, you don't really have any excessively large amounts of bursts that can come. Like, you can do the 6 bursts coming from the leeches, but that's not really very strong. My dormant minion ends up waking up, so it means that I obviously do have that minion online now. I use my Blood Corpse to be able to get my draw spell. Like, the draw spell is also quite strong as well, just to be able to get the cards that I need. And from that one, I do choose Orbital Moon, just in case I do need to have a Reborn going down onto my minions. I then just play down the hero. I then just play down my Airlock Breach, because they aren't really doing too much at the moment, and with the limited pool, they don't really have too much that they can deal damage with. And I'm just trying to get as much damage down onto my opponent as I can, so then I'll be able to use the Leech turn plus the Hideous Husk. Yeah, so I have drawn through quite a lot of my deck as well, but I am using Kill Jaden, so it doesn't really matter too much if I lose Kill Jaden. Like, it doesn't really matter too much if I lose a few of my different cards, or if I start getting close to fatiguing. My opponent just uses Moonfire. Like, it does do a little bit of a trade into my minions, like, but in reality, they're not dealing any damage to me, so I am going to just simply get too powerful for them. And because I've got the Soul Eater, I can AoE them down whenever I want to as well. I end up getting my 5/5 down. It ends up hatching out at the Dormant. And I do just play down the Soul Stealer. It gets me the obviously control of the board again. I then just play down the Ants just to clear my hand down, so then I can use the charge, because I've been for quite a few turns having a lot of hand issues because of how many cards that I've been drawing through the Ancient of Yours. So it is something that I do need to, or something that was happening for me in this game. Like, I could have potentially gone a little bit stronger with without having so many different cards that were in my hand. They end up using the Wisp, and obviously it deals the 6 damage, but in reality I'm up to 75 health, so I'm not really too concerned. I dropped the Corpse Explosion, and then since my board's quite strong, I do just use the leech to get the leeches out, and then I still can't use the Husk just yet, so I just play down the Orbital Moon to be able to get the Reborn just in case they do end up taking it out. And then I use my Charge Minion just to deal some more face damage to them. With the leeches, it is once again stealing the health, so you'll notice that their armor didn't reduce down at all then, but their health did go down. So what I'll be able to do is I'll be able to use the leeches to be able to take them out fully, even if they do have armor that's on them. They ended up using their Ceaseless Expanse here, so obviously with the 10 health that's coming from it is a little bit concerning for me, but I do have a decent hand that I can use if I need to, and I have my own Ceaseless Expanse to be able to take them out otherwise. They end up using their Babbling Book. It gets them obviously another minion down onto the board, and then they use the Wisp. They use their hero power to get the Wisps out. So my play pretty much is just going to be using the Ceaseless Expanse this turn. So you'll see in this here, I do just use the Ceaseless Expanse. It clears the board, Then I use my Infestation, so it gets me the cards, and then I just play down the Husk. And then since I've got 4, and they're dealing 2 damage each, it is gonna be able to take them out. Just use my hero power here as well, and it just shows you that so it ends up getting more armor onto them, so I'm not really too concerned. And then as you can see with the health taking, it's taking from their health and it's not taking their armor, and then I end up winning the game from there. So like, armor is a lot weaker, especially against this class, since you're able to deal health damage using those steel effects. So that's something important to consider. Going into this game, I am playing against a warrior. So with warrior, they have been playing this Draenei sort of version, and it applies quite a lot of pressure to you early, so it's important that when I'm mulliganing here, that I'm looking for my early game cards. So I'll be keeping the Infested Breath, I'll be getting rid of the Husk, I'll be getting rid of the 7 mana spell, I'll keep the Chillful and Baron, just to make sure that I do have some sort of tempo if I need to. I end up getting the 1-drop as well, the 1-drop spell, which will be useful, the Morbid Swarm. And that's going to be useful in terms of making sure that my opponent isn't able to do too much early against me if I do get that out, because I obviously have the leeches as well to push up the damage if I need to. I end up just using it and getting the ants out, which is in general going to be the best of the players. They end up using their Blood Mage Thalnos, so I just use my spell to be able to get the leeches, and then the leech, and then I'll be able to steal the health from the Blood Mage Thalnos, so I don't need to trade into my opponent. And then they end up using Garrosh's Gift. It obviously is just to get them a shield block, and then they'll draw a card, and it goes into my turn, but you know, I'm sitting relatively decent, but they end up just conceding. I'm not really sure what the idea was behind that, but yeah, they just choose to concede. I guess their hand must have been terrible or something. So going into this game, I am playing against a Paladin. So I haven't played against a Paladin in quite a long time, especially since the starships for Paladin was in general the worst of the archetypes, the worst of the classes. So with Paladin, they are playing Libram, so it's important to make sure that you're trying to out-tempo them, or apply enough pressure that you can keep them with the board state that's not going to be able to deal lethal to you. So I do end up just playing down my 1/1s, my ants, and then I just go face. Getting the charge minion into the pool for the corpses means that I'll be able to use my 2 mana minion next turn, my Hemorrhage. And then, yeah, so it's quite strong for me going into the next turn. I do end up drawing into the Infested Breath here, so I do just send it into their into their minion, and then my Leech obviously deals the face damage to them. They use the Libram Clarity, so it does show to me that they are using the Libram archetype. And then they're obviously going to use the Imbue, probably have the Imbue, the hero power change as well, because it is quite strong, like getting all those different dragons into the board. But the problem is, if you aren't able to establish too much tempo, you do end up losing out a little bit, just because of the fact that your board can get very weak if you don't have the minion or the control of the board that you'd want. I do end up just choosing the Infestation, I send my charge minion into their card, and then I get the lifesteal coming from the leeches. They end up overdrawing Consecration, which is quite a big deal for them, just simply because it would have been able to take out my leeches. They use their hand spell to draw an extra card. Obviously gets them another Draenei out as well, but because of how their board state is, I can just use the lifesteal to be able to take out the 2/1 that's there. So I just send my my 2/3 into it, and then I just go face with the rest. Like, it would have been preferred, obviously, not to have the 3/2 there with the Divine Shield, but it is what it is for it. Like, I'd end up having to use the minion for it. They end up using a Consecration, so it does obviously deal with quite a lot of my board. They then use their spell to be able to get another spell of their deck, but since they didn't deal any damage to me, I can just use my Infestation, and then I can hero power to hit into the 1/1, and then the leeches will be able to deal enough damage with the husk buff coming from it. So as you can see, like, you do get quite a lot of power coming from the leeches, being able to get the little extra chip damage coming from it. So going into this match, I am playing against another Death Knight, so it's quite likely they're going to be playing a similar sort of style as my deck. So I'm going to be keeping the Morbid Swarm, and I'll also keep my other 2 drops as well, just in case I do need to apply some pressure towards them. Yeah, like I don't really know what's the ideal lines in terms of playing in this sort of matchup. Like, you obviously want to make sure that you're applying your tempo, but that's all I understand so far for it. So I do just play down my Morbid Swarm. It's the best of the cards that's going to be in my hand for this sort of situation. They'll more than likely just go face with their 2 1/1s, and then they'll use the charge minion to trade into me, which is, you know, pretty standard sort of play that you'd be doing. I'm going to use my 1/1 to trade into their 1/1, and then it will mean that I can, I could use that to get the buff off if I needed to. I ended up choosing the extra Morbid Swarm just to be able to get the extra tempo out if I need to. And obviously with how they traded then, it does mean that I end up getting in front of them with the board state. I kept the coin since I do have the 2 infestations in my hand. So I'm just going to trade the 2/3 into the 1/1, then I'll use the coin for the leeches. I get the extra 2 cards, but also it does end up taking out their 2/2 anyway. They end up just playing down their Mortician, so they obviously could potentially get some sort of relatively decent card from it. The leeches will be able to take them out back if I use my charge card, or I could use my second infestation to be able to take them out as well. So they end up using their Rite of Atrocity. It does get them a minion with a Dark Gift, so I haven't really paid too much attention to the newest expansion just yet, since I've been focusing so much on standard for the starships, archetypes and things. So I don't really know what all the different Dark Gifts do at this point in time. I know one is charged, so it's pretty busted. Yeah. I send the charge minion to the 2/2, and then I just use my leeches to be able to take out the 2/3, and then I use my leeches to be able to take it out. They end up using Infested Breath, so it does end up taking out my leech. And then they end up using their one. Their one ends up going onto me as well. So I just use the Infestation here. It obviously gets me the extra 2 minions out onto the board as well. I do have the Morbid Swarm that I can use here as well to be able to use against them. I end up just summoning the 2 1/1s just to get me a little bit of extra board, because I don't think this deck really runs too much of an AoE besides from Corpse Explosion, and you don't really want to use a Corpse Explosion against this sort of board anyway. So my leeches end up taking out the Chillforged Baron, and then they obviously get the extra card coming from their Death Rattle. They do end up using their Corpse Explosion, so they aren't really establishing too much this turn anyway. Going into 6 mana, I do have the Rune Blade that I'd be able to use here. I obviously have my 2 Infestors as well if I need to. I do have a few different choices that I can do. So I just play down the Rune Blade, and then I just get the Infestor down. It gets me another Husk as well that I can use into my hand. The problem with using the Infestor that turn does mean that I'm going to be overdrawing, which could be a potential little bit of a problem for me. Their Husk ends up coming down onto the board. I do obviously have my own Husk here as well, so I use the Morbid. I play down my Husk. I then use the Morbid Swarm to be able to take out the 0/2, I believe. Oh no, so I send it to the 3/5. Then I use my hero to trade into the 0/2, and then the 2 leeches take away the health from the other minions that are there. Yeah, so it does mean that you are able to... they end up using their mask as well. They get another one down. They then use their charge minion to be able to go face, so at the moment I am definitely the one in front with this current board position. I play down my second Husk, and since I do have the other Husk on the board, it is currently dealing 5 damage. So I send the my 1/1 to face, and then I trade the 3/5 into the 0/2 just because the leeches are currently dealing more damage than what my 3/5 is, because the leeches with the 2 husks on the board is dealing 5 damage. They end up playing down their Soul Stealer, so that's one of the cards that in this specific matchup that you do want to make sure that you're holding on to, just simply because of the fact that they it clears a lot of the board, and if they are using an archetype that does get the if you are using an archetype that does get the extra kill Jaden, you do want to make sure that you're holding onto those cards to be able to AoE your opponent if you need to. A problem that I did just face then was I chose the 3-mana weapon instead of getting the Corpse Explosion. I should have definitely chosen the Corpse Explosion, just simply because in the later turns, in the later game, you do want to be making sure that you're using those to be able to clear your opponent's board while also building up your own board, especially with the Kill Jaden minions. They end up using their Soul Stealer to go face. I do have more health than them at the moment as well, which is important for me. They send their Ghoul Charge face as well, so they're not particularly doing too much against me at the moment. I end up just playing down my Airlock Breach. Like, I was considering playing down my Soul Stealer that turn, but I decided against it. And then I traded the Ghoul into the 5/2, just to bring it down to 5/1, and then the Leech would end up being able to take it out. The 4/4 being on the board, I didn't need to trade into just yet, since I do have the Airlock Breach minions out too. They end up playing down their 5/6 with their Lifesteal that they have, and they use their Airlock Breach as well, and then a Stitch Giant. So with the amount of cards that it's down on the board, it is important that I am thinking of how I'm going to board clear this. So I do end up just playing down my own Soul Stealer down at the board, and then I'm going to use the charge minion just to deal the face damage into them. I do end up drawing into the Mortician, so actually I end up choosing that. And with these cards here, the Maladar in general is going to be one of the better cards, just because it does get you so much potential value if you're able to cheat out different mana, different spells and things. They end up playing down their Husk and their Infested to be able to deal some more damage to me. So it is going to be able to full clear my board that's here. I end up drawing into a Corpse Explosion. I do obviously have the Ursoc as well. So I do just play down my Maladar. I get the Ursoc because it does mean that it clears the board, but it also means that I'll have extra mana to spend next turn as well. Since it would just kill my Maladar anyway. I'm not really too concerned about it popping out anything, because the only thing that they'd use would be the Ceaseless, as you can see, or the Soul Stealer, or things like that, which ultimately would benefit me anyway. Like, if they use their own Corpse Explosion, it would have been not that great for them either. They use their own Ursoc. It trades into their Ceaseless, unfortunately, for them first, and then my Maladar. They don't really get too much extra value coming from it. It's just simply because of how it ended up landing. So what I want to do this turn is I want to be able to take out all of my opponent's minions that are there on the board. So I trade my 3/5. I should have used my hero to trade into that minion to get the extra corpses. And then I play down my Airlock Breach. And I send my my weapon face, so it should have been the other way around, where I used the weapon onto the 0/2 to get the extra corpses. Not that I think it's really relevant, but obviously extra corpses is better than nothing. They end up using their Soul Stealer to be able to clear my board. I do only have a few cards left in my deck as well, and they're starting to run low as well. I draw into an Infested Breath, so I just play down the Ceaseless here, just down to apply some tempo onto the board. I still obviously do have my Soul Stealer and also 2 Corpse Explosions. So I do want to apply as much pressure as I can into my opponent to get them out their different targeted spells and such. They end up using their Bob, and then they use it to recruit the Ceaseless Expanse, but ultimately it's not really doing anything. Like, they do obviously give me the extra coins, but they either need to play the Ceaseless Expanse down this turn, or I just get extra coins for next turn. They end up using their Infestation, so it does show to me that they're not going to be using the Ceaseless Expanse this turn. And then I'm obviously going to be able to deal 10 damage to them using my own Ceaseless Expanse. I played out my Kill Jaden here just to get, because I don't have any other card that's really important in my deck. I was waiting till I got the 7 mana spell anyway. I do have a clear if I need to as well, so I end up just using my coin just to get it cleared out, because I have the Ancient of Yore drawing me an extra card, so I don't want to overdraw. And then I just send all my damage face. There's not really any point trading into this sort of field that they have. They also show that they're low on cards, so the Bob ends up going face, and then they use the Ceaseless Expanse that they stole from me and play down their own Kill Jaden. So it does show that they're not really doing an exceptional amount just at the moment. With my 2 extra coins, it does mean that I have extra tempo that I can apply into them. My Ancient of Yore ends up popping as well this turn. I do end up making a misplay just here because I play down the Shadow Cloaked. I should have done that after I did the Soul Stealer, just because obviously I would have had an extra 5/7 down onto the board. So I end up just using the Corpse to be able to take out their board. So ultimately that was just a little bit of a misplay that I did just there. It didn't matter too much. But yeah, obviously it's important that you are paying attention to your different win conditions and different ways to do things. The Avatar ends up summoning quite a strong board for them, so they do get the 7/7, they get the 7/9, and things like that. I can use this turn my Corpse Explosion to be able to clean their board. The 7/7 can be quite annoying, especially if it's not cleared straight away, especially if they do get quite a few out that are there. I end up just using my Corpse Explosion here to clear that board of theirs. It does use up, obviously, a lot of the corpses that I had built up too. I use the coin here, it gets me my Maladar out, and then I use it to get out the Avatar of Hearthstone, just so I can get some extra tempo down onto them. And if they don't have anything like a Soul Stealer or a Corpse Explosion, I will be able to win with this sort of board that's here. They had already used all their Corpse Explosions and their Soul Stealer, so it'd just be generated ones they potentially could have. So they end up using a Corpse Explosion, so it did end up being a generated one. And obviously it does end up clearing my board, but I'm not really too concerned about that. They end up summoning a 9/7, so it's a decent sized minion that's there. They are starting to run low on health as well. I do draw into the Doom Maiden, so I just take control of the minion that's there. It gets me some extra value, and then I just play it down. There's no negative part of doing that, getting the extra card ready for taking out your opponent, because it is the extra value that you are able to generate from it. They go face with their 9/5. It does show to me that they're more than likely going to use this time to clear. They don't end up clearing, they do just play down the Airlock Breach, which, it's fine, but it doesn't really do too much for them, simply because of the fact that I do have the 7 mana spell in my hand that I can use to be able to get the Ysera one. I end up drawing into my 2 mana minion, so it's relatively weak. I end up using the Corrupted Awakening to be able to clear my opponent's board, and then I just go face with my 2 minions that are here. There's no point trading into the 2/2s just because of the, I could shuffle it into the deck, but in general it's not going to be that strong. I end up using the coin here to get my extra 6/10 out, just to apply a little bit more pressure onto my opponent, and then I end my turn. So they end up drawing into their turn, which, they are starting to sit into a relatively weak position, simply because I do have the board control at the moment, and I do have my own Soul Stealer if I need to. They play down their Soul Stealer, it gets them to draw an extra 2 cards, and then they get the Leech down. I do obviously have a relatively decent hand to be able to deal with them. They are sitting on 13 health too. So I'm just going to send out all my different minions against them, just to establish some pressure towards them. I go face with my 1/1, and then I just pass over to them. There's not really anything that I needed to do that much that turn. I do have the extra buff for the 5/5 coming in my hand. They end up drawing into an Omen, which was very scary if I didn't have just the exact amount of health and things like that my minions had. And then obviously with the buff that I have in my hand, I am able to take them out. If I had drawn into that sort of minion, obviously the game would have been over a lot earlier as well. So they were pretty much on the back foot as soon as I got the Kill Jaden down before them, and then I started establishing the board, and then that's obviously the end of the game. So going into the last game, I am playing against a Warrior. Once again, the Warriors generally are playing the Draenei build, just because of how it applies a lot of pressure, and it deals quite a lot of damage early. I do Mulligan and keep my Morbid Swarm and then my two mana minions, just because they do generate some extra value for me, and if they are playing a control-y sort of archetype, it does mean that I can use their Discover mechanic to be able to get me different cards potentially that I may need. I end up just using the 1 mana spell, the Swarm, to be able to get the 2 ants out, and then they end up playing down their Grey Mace to be able to get their minions buffed in their hand. So it does obviously apply a decent amount of pressure, since they are going to be getting a lot of extra value coming from it too. I do end up choosing the Maladar just in case I need to be able to apply quite a bit of pressure to my opponent. I do have the Leeches in my hand if I need to use that to clear some of my opponent's minions that potentially they may have. They end up playing down the Draenei that gets the rush and health. They did make a misplay. They should have swung with the axe, with the weapon first, but ultimately it doesn't matter too much. But it does mean that they potentially wouldn't have dealt as much damage if I didn't clear it straight away. So they play down their Avenger. It does have rush. They're able to trade straight away into my Leeches, and then it does end up switching over for getting the extra health bit that's there. I do just play down the Swarm, and then I ends up doing the lifesteal bits on it. It would have obviously been nicer for me if it had been the other way, but they still do have the 6/2. Because it's the way the lifesteal worked was a bit strange. I didn't think it would go that way, but it must have been earliest minion first, latest minion out sort of idea. My Leeches, I do have the Morbid Swarm. My Leech is able to clear quite a bit if I need to. The 6/3 is a little bit scary for me. I do end up choosing here the Morbid Swarm just to be able to make sure that I can clear what I need to. I use my hero power to be able to make it so I can trade into the 6/3, because I don't want them to be able to draw any extra Draenei from their deck. Obviously it's extra value for me, them not being able to. They end up trading into my Leech, and then with their 6/1, it's a little bit scary because they are going to be able to deal quite a bit of pressure towards me from it. I end up drawing my Infested Breath, so I end up using it to hit into the Defender of Argus, because then I'll be able to use my Leech to be able to take out the Defender of Argus, so it's not going to be able to deal as much damage to me. I use the Morbid Swarm to take out their 3/4, and then I just pass the turn over to them, because I don't want to use my 2/3 to make it so it's possible that my Leech wouldn't work. At the moment, they don't really have too much of a board or too much pressure against me, simply because I do have a lot of AoEs that I'm going to be going into. They end up using their 6/1 to go face for me. I draw onto the Hideous Husk, which can apply a bit of pressure into them as well. I use my 2 minions to trade into their Valen, so I can use the Husk to be able to take them out. Unfortunately, the minion end up changing over and I miss the 50-50, they end up just trading their Velen, which is a little bit of a misplay since they ended up losing their Defender of Argus buff that they potentially could have had. Their Astral ends up getting them another Velen, and then they end up just going face with it. They end up trading with it. It does have Rush coming from it, so I just use my Soul Stealer to be able to take back control of the board. I have the Corpse Explosion as well if I need to. So at this point in time, like, I'm pretty much completely set up for what I need, and my opponent is not going to really be able to deal with me. Just simply because of, you know, I'm sitting on quite a large health total. I have a lot of different board clears that potentially can be used, so they aren't sitting well enough to be able to take me out. They end up using their Captain's Log here, and then they play down their Great Mace. Obviously it gets them a few extra cards that's there. I end up using my Hemorrhage card. It's just a blood card, so I play down the Airlock Breach, and it gets me an extra bit of health back, but obviously it's applying extra pressure to my opponent as well, so it means that they do need to clear this board if they are planning on doing something. They end up playing the Akama down. They then play down their 6-3. They did make a little bit of a mistake here because they should have played down the extra minion that they're going to play down in a moment. Obviously to get the extra rushing buff that's there. Oh, it doesn't end up propping that way. Never mind. So I do have a decent amount of board at the moment, so I just use my Soul Stealer. It ends up taking them out completely. I did make a little bit of a misplay then. I should have used the weapon first, and then I should have used the Soul Stealer afterwards, because the weapon would have gotten me the extra 1 damage coming from it. The extra 1 attack and the extra 1 durability, rather than just the 1 durability that came from it. They end up just playing down two of those minions that are here. I do have my Ceaseless Expanse to be able to clear the board as well, so I just use that. I then play down the Airlock Breach. It gets me the extra, oh, never mind. I play down the Maladar, and then I use the Avatar of Hearthstone to get an extremely large board. And ultimately that will end up being the game, just because it's, you know, it's at the point where they're not going to be able to clear it or things like that. I do obviously have a lot of pressure still that I can do here. So yeah, like, it's quite a strong deck. It was quite fun playing it as well. So if you are interested, obviously have a look in the description for the deck. And you know, hopefully you end up doing well with your plays that you potentially could have with this deck too. But yeah, if you have enjoyed the content, please like and subscribe. I really do appreciate the support that you've been providing me, and bye for now.